Hey Tribe, we're going to talk about mastering your movement today. We've gone over our primal calisthenics in the past two videos. We're showing you kind of how to break down and find the weakness in your position, whether that's going to be the upper body, where we're working only the top half of the reps, the lower half of the reps, and the full range motion of the reps, whether that be a push-up or a press. We've also gone over the lower body and the squat, the lunge, and the deadlift as well too. That helping to find those positions that are tough for us, to explore our movement so we can get a better understanding of how to build muscle, how to be out of pain, and how to pretty much put more fluid into our joints and tendons to move better. Today, we're going to go a little bit deeper into that detail, and we're going to show you how to actually feel your muscles. So we talk a lot about the mind-muscle connection and bringing our movement to our consciousness. Most of the time when we're moving, we're just doing things. I'm not physically thinking about when I'm hinging over. I'm not like, all right, slight knee bend, push my hips back, arms are long, and picking it up. It just doesn't happen in our day-to-day movement because our brain is always trying to move in the most efficient pattern possible. And sometimes, or excuse me, the easiest way possible, but it's not always the most efficient. And sometimes the easiest way possible is not healthy for our joints or tendons, or we're just going to favor one side over the other and continuously do that year after year until we feel pain in our body. So let's talk about how we can get and take four basic movements: the squat, the plank, the TFL raise, and the push-up, making a very small adjustment to either the position or the way that we load our body that's going to look almost exactly the same as your current movement pattern does, but we are now identifying or help build a weakness or a compensatory pattern within our movement. So let's first go off the squat. So we're going to go side vision of the squat. We're going to talk about understanding where the load of our body is in that squat and how the squat could look exactly the same, but we might not be loading that body with as efficiently as possible. So if Nadine just goes into the bottom of a squat, she's going to have an entire foot on the ground, heel and toe. Feel well balanced, probably front from the toe to the heel is equal. Now what she can do is just slightly shift her body forward, and now she's going to be a little bit toe dominant. So she's going to feel a little bit more in the knees and the quads, on the front side of the ankles, but she can also shift this back a little bit further. Takes the stress off of the knees. We're going to be loading a little bit more onto the glutes, the hamstrings and quads. Stand up. And you're going to have more of a balanced feel that's happening on the front and back side of the legs and onto the glutes where we want that happening. If you guys are hearing that, we got some good rain here, so just bear with us if it is being picked up on the mic. But one way of identifying where our weight is just by doing that. Going into the squat, shifting the body forward enough that we could still hold the squat without falling over, and also shifting the body backwards so we can find that balance. It is key to have equal weight distributed from front to back of the foot, and that's what we're looking for. So if we're squatting with the toes up when we're going down into that squat, or we're squatting with the feet rolled out, we need to try and apply more of the feet to the ground. And when we do that, we're creating more activation of the muscles because our feet are tied into different muscles of the legs, which we've gone over in previous videos. But not just forward and back, right? Because that's the easy part. We also want to look side to side. Many of us have a hip that might be slightly elevated. One hip might be rolled a little bit more forward than the other. We might have both hips that are tilting forward or back, and we want to start making adjustments to that pattern too. So if Nadine, who's now facing you, does this squat again, she's just going to go down, and what she can do is now shift the weight to the side on one leg and shift the weight to the other, and we're going to see how that changes her squat pattern. Then we're going to stand up with that weight on one side. Now we're going to try and think that she's going to be a little bit more right leg dominant in the squat. So she's purposely going to shift that leg a little bit to the right and squat down. Good. Staying on that side, come back up. Now shift a little bit more to the left side, closer to me. And when she squats down and stands up, She might find that it's easier on one leg than the other. Did you find one that felt a little bit stronger?
Yeah.
Which one is stronger?
This one I feel like is honestly a little bit stronger. This one I feel like I have to kind of push more a little bit.
So you have to push a little bit more on that right leg.
Yeah, focus a little bit more on it.
So that's a simple way of being like, hey, guess what? My legs aren't perfectly balanced. But in general, our body is not symmetrical. So we can't expect our movement to be perfect. And that could go through our entire life, that it's not symmetrical. And that's okay. You're never going to find that perfect unless you start driving with your left leg, you start driving on the other side of the road, you start sleeping on the other side of the bed, you put your TV on a different side of the couch that changes the way that you're sitting and looking at it. All these little tiny things that we don't think about actually change the way that our body can compensate. So with that squat, once again, we're looking forward and back. We're also looking side to side. And if you apply this with our primal calisthenics of working the 0 to 90 in the squat, 90 to the floor. So can you just demonstrate those really quick for those who didn't know or haven't seen that video? So to help build the movement patterns to find the weakness, we're just doing the 0 to 90 for 3. And then we're going from 90 to bottom for 3. And then we're doing 3 full range of motion squats. If we apply this practice along with how our body is adjusted left or right, we could truly see where the weak part is in our squat, and then we want to try and favor that. So if we have 10 reps, maybe 6 of them we favor on that side, and then 4 of them we do normal. So we start just giving a little bit more love to the side that needs it. Another one that we can go on is the plank. Man, that rain's coming down. Good. All right, next one we're going to go on to is the plank. So when she's in the plank position, what we could look at here is nice rounding the spine and the shoulders right over the hands. Now, for a lot of us, we don't even stack the shoulders over the hands. They're actually a little bit further back. Or we can move those hands up. And when we hold this position, a lot of times our core isn't doing the work, and we're just holding it up on our shoulders and our legs. So what we can do is just slowly adjust, either move those hands back, or we're just shifting that body weight forward. Now this is a great position, but she could even move this further forward and come up high on the toe. And now with this rounding position, she should really feel that core working in that plank. And that's what you're shooting for. Relax. When we're in that plank, it's cool to have the longest plank, but you're not doing the plank just to have the longest time. You're doing the plank to get stronger at our core. And if we're not utilizing that in the way that it's supposed to, you're just going to get stronger shoulders and legs and not actually the core. So don't try and make your core the longest as possible. Actually try to make it as challenging as possible and try to make it that makes your body stop in the shortest amount of time. Think of it more like golf, right? The lowest score is the best. That's what we try to shoot for in golf. Well, in this, think about the plank. You're going to try to put yourself in a position that makes it the most challenging that we can, that gets your core to shake. When our muscles are shaking, that's when our muscles are being built. That's when we're recruiting more muscles. That's also when we're shaping our muscles. So if you want the good aesthetics too, do these and focus on feeling that contraction in them. When we're in that, let's see. Yeah, with that plank, we're good with that plank. So just shift that body as we need. The next we're going to go off of is a TFL side raise. Now, this might not be a super common practice for everyone, but it should be in your weekly practice is a TFL side raise. And she's going to lay entirely on her side. And one way to start this is I have her extend her arm down on the side of her body. And if she extends her arm and lifts her leg with her arm on there, there should be pretty much a straight line from ankle, knee, hip, elbow, shoulder into that ear. That's how you know you're in line. A lot of us have this slight bend, so have your feet just shifted forward for me, both of them. Yeah, so a lot of us go into this TFL side raise and the body is slightly tilted and not in a straight line. We need to make sure that we open up the hip all the way. So go back into that straight line. Excuse me. So the TFL side raise, why I'm doing this is because this is an easy one to understand whether we're activating the glute in the TFL. And for those who don't know what the TFL is, the TFL is a tensor fascia lata. It's a muscle, it's kind of like a triangle and it attaches directly to your IT band. So if we have a lot of IT band issues and you're always foam rolling the IT band, A lot of times it's weakness in the TFL, and this is a TFL side raise that helps build the muscle, which is going to take away all the tension on here. Muscle's not working as strong as it should in balance of the hip, so it's pulling on the IT band. This is causing you the pain, so we need to start working on this. Quick background on the TFL raise. So what we're going to do is we're going to show how we can do a TFL side raise, but actually use the quad muscle instead of the glute. And the way that she does that is if this leg is slightly in front midline and she raises this up, she should feel a lot of this VLO kicking in. We might get a little bit of the glute, maybe a little bit of TFL, sure. But this leg is going to be working mostly quad. She's probably not going to feel anything in the glute. Now, if she squeezes her glute and sweeps the leg slightly behind, doesn't even have to be far, and now when she raises that leg up, we should feel more glute and more TFL kicking in. The other thing that you have to notice is that when she has this foot up, this toe is down. She's not rotating with the foot up. Point that toe up. Yeah. So if the toe is coming above the midline of your leg, we're promoting quad. If we can rotate the entire hip and have that pointed down and slightly swept back, that's when we're going to start firing up glute in the TFL. So the smallest change of a couple inches is going to change the dynamic of the movement from focusing all quad to focusing on building your glutes in your TFL. So try that one out too. Lay on your side, see if you can feel the quad lifting the leg up, or if we have it swept back and lifting the foot, the glute up. Good one. Just another factor to think about too, we always talk about thinking about that movement. When you're doing a TFL side raise, and you could even do them like leaning against a wall, like legitimately leaning against a wall, bringing the leg back, rotate the foot in, and just bringing it back at a 45, we'll feel all this kicking in, versus if we're kicking up here, I'm going to feel all this. That slight little bit of a movement, but you could even give that a try and focus on making the movement happen with the hip. It's very easy when we're laying on the ground, we think about the foot just raising up. So we're just picking the foot up. We're almost creating momentum. And then when we do that, the momentum is allowing that muscle to be relatively relaxed and not do as much work as possible. So if we slow that down and we physically think the hip is lifting the leg, you'll actually find that this muscle will kick in and help lift the leg. Now, you might not get it up as high, might not get as many reps, you're not going to get any of that stuff, but that's what we want. We're looking to break down that position, so it's a lot harder to do, because if it's harder to do, it means that we're needing to use more muscles to do it. And the final one we're going to go over is the push-up, and we're going to show two positions, ways that we can load the body in that push-up. And that's going to be how are the arms, or in general, obviously, how the arms doing the push-up. I really don't need to explain that. But what happens is on the push-up, a lot of us have a stronger arm, stronger pec, stronger tricep than the other side. So when we get into a push-up, sometimes we're going to push up a little bit more on one arm. So Nadine, can you demonstrate what that looks like, please? When she comes up, she might favor one arm, and the body wants to push up a little bit higher on one arm. Then we get done and we feel one arm did more work than the other. So go back to those primal calisthenics that we talked about, the primal push-up, where we're doing those, top to 30 or top to 90, and then 90 to the bottom, and then full range. But when we do this, we're now going to favor one side than the other. When we pause in the hover, we should be able to identify which side of the body is working more. So if she goes down to about 90-degree hover, she's going to find out which side, and then what she can do is just shift the body back and forth and then push up. Good, and relax. So by shifting that body back and forth, what you might find is you're like, I'm dominant on one arm, now I'm really dominant on the other, on that arm. And then when we shift and try to favor the other arm, it might actually feel that this position has equal pressure. And if that's the case, that's good. That's what we want to try and do. We're trying to find the balance of that. And that might mean that we are out of perfect straight alignment. It might mean that we have to change our position to feel equal pressure in the muscles, rather than being straightforward just because there's something else that's going on in the rest of the body. Maybe our shoulder is elevated, maybe the hip is elevated, so the shoulder is going to be dropping. So all these little tiny things that we can make adjustments on are going to help us find and identify any corrective movements that we need, help build us to have a more efficient body, recruit more muscle fibers, bring more health to our joint and tendon, because if we're always favoring one joint and tendon, that one's going to wear out quicker. Once that one gets injured, the body's going to shift over to the other joint and tendon and tire that out. But if we can get them both working relatively equal or try our best on a day-to-day basis to practice more sound and efficient movement, our body's going to be healthier. Give it a try. Let us know what you think. As always, if you like our videos, click like, subscribe, do that whole thing. Shoot us questions. We always love it. And we'll see you guys next week.